Homophobia and transphobia are continuous phenomena that are present globally. But today, the lens is not globally focused, but it will address the African American or Black community. The African American community is a group of people who have been oppressed socially, mentally, physically, and economically for centuries. To think that this group of people can oppress another marginalized group within their own communities is insane. With the knowledge of what our ancestors went through and what Blacks today go through, you would think that there will be some sort of compassion. We as Blacks must do better, and the younger generations must spark this change. According to Webster's dictionary, homophobia is an irrational fear of, aversion to, or discrimination against homosexuality and homosexuals. And transphobia is an irrational fear of, aversion to, or discrimination against transgender or transsexual people. And sexuality is something that is socially constructed and reinforces this understanding of doxa. Doxa is the Greek word meaning common knowledge. It is what we use to make sense of the world, in other words. The homophobic and transphobic beliefs that have been shared generationally are what we use to understand and make sense of homosexuality and being transgender. Homophobia in the African American community is something that is described as taboo and often a point of shame. These fears have continued to be within the community both religiously and historically. If you ask parents in this community if they had to choose between their children being gay or unsuccessful, many would choose unsuccessful. How crazy is that? During the Atlantic slave trade was the creation of the other, where people, unlike slave capturers and slave holders, were seen as different and unequal. They were seen as inferior. With the creation of the other in regards to the slaves, this idea of the other was translated within their culture, which it later began to be used among present-day African American communities. Yet, what makes someone other when we're all different? Now, Blacks live in a sexual repressive culture where we have compromised our sexuality just to live in the United States. Many Blacks have overcompensated and assimilated to Puritan beliefs, which sparked this controversy behind homophobia and transphobia. Puritan beliefs stating that sex is only for procreation and the idea of only heterosexual relationships are approved. Homosexuality is viewed as a threat to the heterosexual family. Religion is a large part of the African American community, and organizations, especially ones of Christian origin, have preached on the concept of procreation and that sexual acts that do not contribute to this concept are therefore a sin. A literary review by Ward states that homophobia in Black churches have 3 different types of explanations. These explanations include religious beliefs, historical sexual exploitation, and racial survival consciousness. Ward argues that religious beliefs fuel homophobia because it is one that appears in the Bible as a sin. The second explanation offered in this text was that homophobia was prevailed in our community due to the fact that it's much of our history has focused on the means of exploiting our sexual behaviors. And of course, the survival of our race and homosexuality does not lead to reproduction in order to do so. Many of you have already heard of the attacks against transgender men and women. These attacks are prominently against people of color. There have been 12 transgender murders so far just in 2017. The lives of Black transgender women, JoJo Stryker, 23, from Ohio, Nisha Caldwell, 41, of Mississippi, China Doll Dupree, 31, of New Orleans, and many others have been lost to senseless acts of hatred towards this community. We are killing our own because they are different. It is ridiculous and it needs to be stopped. The world and its diverse population would not exist if we continue to kill innocent people because they're not the same. This otherness that we create and hold with a high standing is destroying so many. There is no going back after the damage is already done. With all of the information presented, the point of this video is not to shame or point fingers at anyone in the Black community, but to bring awareness in order to enact change. For with knowledge comes understanding, and with understanding comes acceptance, and acceptance is key.